is Hector Gonzales. My mother's name is Valerie Schriefer, and my father's name is Gilbert Gonzales. Those are my parents. This is my psychedelic story. I guess it begins when I was a child. I've always been a little weird, a little bit different. Been through a lot of trauma in my life as a child, and a teenager, and even as an adult. And psychedelic and plant medicines really helped me dive deep into my own things. Through this process, I've learned how to live an okay life. My first sacred plant medicine experience was in the end of 2019. And prior to that, I had taken mushrooms a few times, but it was never within the intent or any ceremony style. So as a young teenager and an adult, I started to use a lot of drugs to kind of cope with my life and the things that I've been through. And through those experiences, I was very close to death multiple times. And Bufo was my very first experience in a sacred setting, and that experience really changed my life. And Bufo really woke me up, and it told me quite a few things. My life has not been the same since that day. So my first experience with psychedelic plant medicines was in Texas, in South Texas. Through this process of the Bufo, I've learned a lot about myself and a lot about these medicines. So my first experience with Bufo was in a sacred setting. And the medicine, it did work. It changed my life. And that one Bufo process, the first one that I had, really gave me an awareness of how much I have to do. And specifically, in my first process, I was told that I needed to quit using cocaine and that it was putting holes in my nasal cavities and my sinuses. And as I was trying to breathe through the process, it told me that I needed to quit smoking cigarettes because I can't breathe. I couldn't take in that full prana, that breath, that air. It was a very good day for me. So after that first Bufo process, I began at the church that I was at in Texas to sit with peyote. I sat with peyote my first time there in Texas, and I also drank ayahuasca my first time there in Texas. And over the past 3 years or so, I've kind of devoted my life to helping other people who are in my position. Because if I would have found this medicine and these types of things a lot earlier on in life, I feel like I would be a lot better in a position. I wouldn't have gone through so much extra trauma that I went through, a lot of it on my own accord. I wanted to learn how to really work with the Bufo. I wanted to learn how to work with it in a really deep way. After, I think it was like my 6th or 7th ceremony, I reached out to the owner of the church and said, hey, I feel called to learn this stuff a lot deeper. She told me that if I found some medicine that I could go back and she would teach me. And so I contacted some people in Mexico, and they sent me some medicine in the mail, and I got the medicine, and I tried to go learn from the church that I was starting at, but it didn't turn out to be like that. I was met with a lot of resistance, and I was told that I wasn't allowed to go back to that church because I didn't have respect for the medicine, and I was a child, and I didn't know what I was doing. So that right there really hurt me because this place changed my life. It was one of the biggest blessings in disguise that I come now looking back. It was a very big blessing for me because through that process of not being allowed to go learn at the place here in Texas or there in Texas where I was at, I was forced to go learn in Mexico with the Comcac tribe, the Seri tribe. I went down to Mexico to first collect my own medicine. It's because after I got the Bufo and I tried to go learn at the church, I wasn't allowed there. So I sat in my home and I smoked the Bufo 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day for 3 or 4 days a week for probably about 3 months. And through that process, I learned how to really map out the amount of medicine and what the effects were and where I was at and what I was doing in that process. So I found out later that's absolutely not the right way to do it. That's actually counterintuitive, because the more you smoke bufo, the weaker your connection with the source consciousness becomes. After I ran out of medicine there, I went down to Mexico to collect medicine with my good brother Edgar, who has a 13-acre ranch that is a sanctuary that is recognized by the Mexican Department of Agriculture, called the SARMNAT. So I arrived there and I spent a few days with him, getting to know him as a person. After collecting a little bit of medicine, I explained to him that I was looking for a teacher, that I really wanted to have someone to teach me the correct way to really walk with the medicine and share the medicine in a sacred way. And he told me that, hey, I know the elders of the Comcac. We ended up driving down the very next morning to go meet the elders of the Comcac, and I had a ceremony with them, and they asked me to stay. They asked me to stay with them for several weeks and to be with them and to go through a fast and a vision quest in search of a shamanic connection inside myself. So through that process, I spent 4 days on Shark Island, which is a reservation island of the Comcac in Sonora. And I spent 4 days with no food and 1 bottle of water. That process taught me that I don't need anything besides God to stay alive. I don't need anything but God to provide for everything. As much as we try to control things and try to be, try to look out for ourselves, nothing happens without the Creator and without God. So through that fasting process, I learned to put all of my faith in God and to trust my own ability. And I made it through those 4 days. It was a really difficult process for me. It was really scary, especially hearing that the gentleman before me who went through this process ended up in the hospital. So that almost made me not want to go and do it, but I still did it anyway, and I made it through. And after that process, over the course of the next 6 months after that process, I took probably around 20 people in small groups down to Mexico to experience what I had experienced in a way. During my time in Mexico, I went with the Council of Elders, 2 members from the Council of Elders and my teacher, Luis, and we went to the courthouse in Hermosillo, which is the capital of Sonora, and we founded a civic association, a religious civic association, based on the religious beliefs of the Comcac, using their history and their lineage of shamanic practices in conjunction with the 5-MeO-DMT to firmly state in a very recorded way that's undeniable that the 5-MeO-DMT is the sacrament of choice and how the Comcac and their shamanic practice connect to God and Source. So I founded a church, and the church is called Yoshki Yako, which is Akitam in language. It means house of God. House of God, the church is everywhere on the face of this earth. Everywhere is the house of God, because God is everywhere. After my time there, I was recognized as a person of the tribe, and I was able to teach their ancestral teachings and to sing their songs and to share with their shamanic practices in sacred ceremony. So I started to travel the United States and Puerto Rico and Mexico and to share the bufo in many different ceremonies in many different states. My entire life, I've always liked to learn things the hard way. And through those experiences, I learned the most through difficult processes, unfortunately. So that being said, I have quite a bit of experience on what to do and what not to do as far as, medicine and sharing and how to carry myself and how to portray psychedelic medicines in a safe and protected environment for many people. I personally have served and worked with around 750 people in ceremony with bufo specifically. Aside from bufo, I was gifted a teepee, a 30-foot teepee, and over the course of the last year and a half, I went out and cut down 22 lodgepole pines by myself. I prayed and gave tobacco to each pole, and I cut down each pole, and I stripped the bark on each pole, and Now I have a teepee that a good brother and roadman of mine is teaching me those ways. So I'll continue to pray with peyote in that way.